Now will each of you give a salutatory kiss or greeting to your neighbor.
The first time I went to a People's Temple meeting, I felt like I was home.
When Jim Jones was up on stage, the whole audience was hanging on every word he said.
But the more power he got, the darker the story got.
Jim was a power addict, always trying to think how he could control People's Temple members.
Reverend Jones, how do you account for such an avid following?
I'm principled and dedicated to my people.
When we moved to San Francisco, things went to the next level.
But the rampant drug use increased his paranoia.
You punk! You goddamn gangland punk!
The more power he got, the sicker he got.
When the story came out, he wasn't around to answer for it.
I remember my father saying, "We're going to Guyana."
In Jonestown, things were good for a while, but then things started shifting.
Our town could not last.
I know it's not pleasant, children. My God, somebody's got to fight this revolution.
Attention, attention. Every member of the community must come to the pavilion immediately. We may have an invasion.
Jim said, they're coming for our children. They're coming for our children, and so we need to stand strong.
We were all lined up with shovels and pickaxes and whatever other tools were there. We were going to fight.
We'll kill them as they come!
You don't know what you're missing down here? These are potato chips made from plantain, and they're more delicious. They're a combination of a potato chip and a French fry. And radishes, Here are the people at the table, eating an afternoon snack. It's another sunny day. It's interesting when I walk out. Every time I walk out, as the people can verify, the rain will stop. So that's been amazing.
I think there are many different reasons people went to Jonestown. It had a lot to do with peer pressure. For many of them, they were probably hopeful. You know, we can be a happy community again.
You all happy? You here? You happy, Tom?
Yes.
Everybody's happy down here. You can see that that's an obvious fact.
The story was we were going to paradise, the grand utopia. But we're trying to feed over 900 people down there. It was a battle we wouldn't win. And probably Dad saw that. So the drama just escalated, which only weakened all of us and frightened all of us and frankly drew us more into his own sickness.
As time grew on, the difference in Jim Jones was very marked.
I think Dad was feeling lost in Jonestown. He could no longer parade about and convince himself of how grand he is. His drug use, just at that point, was off the charts.
He's passed out half the time in his cabin. He blows up physically. He's terribly bloated. So instead of seeing, their godlike leader is just a fat, sweaty man. He loses any claim to divinity because they're too close to him now. There's no place for him to go hide.
The punishments did get much more severe. They had this hole that they put people in.
This item called the box. People were put in there for punishment purposes.
A person would be blindfolded, and they would be told eels and leeches were in there.
You want to die, do you? I don't give a shit tonight. Put him in the fucking box tonight. How about going in the box tonight? Dad. Put your hand in there. Put your hand in there. We might as well be free from you. Nobody else see it. Nobody else see it.
You couldn't trust anyone with any information. Children turned in their parents. So if anyone asks you, how do you like Jonestown? I love it. It's great.
Hello, family. Greetings from a truly promised land, prepared by Father.
Hello, family. Thank Father I have a chance to talk to you. And
The mail was definitely censored. I didn't get all the letters that were sent to me. If you were to write, basically your letter consisted of, so glad I'm here. Oh, Jim Jones is a wonderful leader and we're building a utopia. That was what you could write. It became extremely repressive, somewhat like a concentration camp.
People say, well, how could they stay? And a big reason is they don't have their passports, they don't have money to get home. A huge reason is that they remain dedicated to the cause. And if they do try to get away, there's the jungle. Jim Jones has them.
Sing a song, God loves us everyone. We're a happy family, yes we are. We're a happy family, yes we are.
While the people inside this Ukiah home say they fear for the lives of their friends and family far away in that People's Temple in Guyana, that Reverend Jim Jones works in some very unexpected ways, but they say that talking about it is worth it.
Well, yeah, they try to give you the impression that that everything you hear is not the truth and that everything is beautiful down there. And
somehow Jim Jones has an ability to control their minds, and as long as those minds are controlled, I'm afraid there's a potential for some danger.
The concerned relatives was the label for the unhappy ex-members as well as parents who wanted access to the temple's members in Guyana.
This is not a commune. This is not a church. This is just insanity.
They were having no luck getting through to their family members. They were turned away. Their letters were sent back with simplistic kind of go-away messages. That these folks were very bothered by that treatment.
I really feel, and anybody can question me, I'll submit myself to tests, I'll talk to psychiatrists, whatever, but I believe I was brainwashed.
We met with the press. I said, I was there for 6 years. I said, I know what Jim is capable of. My son, John, obviously was being turned against me, and that's when I decided to fight for my son.
The courts are called into play as Greystone sues Jim Jones to get custody of John Victor back. And in fact, an arrest order, if he didn't comply, was being issued.
I could not let this child go to her. He told me some of the most horrible things she did that you could ever imagine, that she did to him and said to him.
Jim Jones and the leadership do not want to let go of John Victor Stone because symbolically he represents the ability of anybody stateside to get any child from Jonestown and bring them back to America.
The Guyanese court order precipitated what the settlers later called the 6-day siege.
Every member of the community must come to the pavilion immediately.
Jim said, they're coming for our children, and so we need to stand strong.
We were being told that the Guyanese army was coming in and we were going to fight because, if you take one of us, you have to take all of us kind of thing.
I'm sitting there thinking, I wonder how I'm going to die today. Are they going to come with machine guns and I'm going to get shot? I wonder what a bullet feels like. At 20. I didn't think I was going to see 21.
I got a hell of a lot of weapons to fight. I got my claws, I got compasses, I got guns, I got dynamite, I got a hell of a lot to fight. I'll fight, I'll fight, I will fight, I will fight, I will fight, I will fight. Now listen, let the night roar with it. Oh, they know we mean it. We'll kill them as they come.
Jim told us that we were under attack by the Guyanese army. And we're up all night, like a human chain, with our machetes, there's guns, there's people, the security is out.
We'd stand there, and then after a while, Jim would say, well, they're not going to come tonight.
And then he sends us to bed. And then the next night could happen again. It was 6 days of being told that you're under attack, and you might die at any moment. We weren't getting any rest. People were exhausted. This is the psyche. This is what he's doing to us. He's constantly preparing us to where we're thinking about our own deaths.
Jim Jones started talking about revolutionary suicide, and that if they couldn't stay together because of their enemies, then they would die together in order to show loyalty to one another.
He was standing on the steps to the radio room, and the people that were still there, 400 or so, he actually said, let's take a vote. How many people here want to commit revolutionary suicide? 3 people raised their hand. 3. And I saw the look of kind of disappointment in his eyes, but also a strategic look, kind of like, what am I going to have to do? I'll never forget that.
The whole thing was that we were under attack by the Guyanese government. And then years later, we find out that it was really over the custody battle.
So what are you going to do?
So what am I going to do now? Well, I've been fighting this legal case for 2 years, trying to get John, and I'll just keep on trying and trying. I'm getting John Stone out of there, no matter what I have to do.
This was 1978. I was a legislative counsel to a member of Congress in San Francisco. The concerned relatives started writing to members of Congress, Congressman Ryan being one of them.
I think the issues in this campaign are pretty much where they are any place else in the country. They're concerned about their jobs. They're concerned about the war in Vietnam.
Leo Ryan had a reputation as a man who was willing to investigate. When he was warned that there was abuse of prisoners, he got himself anonymously put in prison for a week. When the fate of baby seals was brought to his attention, he went up to defend the seals by throwing his body in front of one of them.
The first thing we have to do is to get in touch with Jonestown.
Congressman Ryan had this uncanny ability to look beneath. And he listened to these defectors. Many of them were interviewed, and it became very apparent to him that there was something wrong.
I'm trying to find out what the facts are. As an absolutely non-committed person, I have...
So he decided that he wanted to do a congressional delegation trip to Guyana and visit the People's Temple there.
At night you hear gunshots, and Jim says those are the people out there trying to come in and kill us. He's got everybody scared.
In preparation for the trip, I remember sitting in my office listening to audio tapes of interviews from defectors and having this ominous feeling. I did have a premonition about the trip.
I did try to warn Congressman Ryan. I don't think anybody heard us, or they didn't believe us. You say there's a lot of this and you can't believe that. I'm telling you that you have never met up with a man like Jim Jones.
Tuesday, November 14th. Congressman Leo Ryan and his party of people related to cult members, reporters, and cameramen left the United States for Georgetown, Guyana, hoping to get to Jonestown.
When Leo Ryan, the concerned relatives, and the media arrive in Georgetown, they have a couple tough days. Ryan is trying to get permission to enter Jonestown. Jones says no.
Yankees go home. And that's the present somewhat hostile attitude of the People's Temple.
Harris heard some ominous things about Jonestown in an interview with a former leader of the cult who had defected.
If your mother and your sisters and brother wanted to leave Jonestown, wouldn't they just leave?
They keep, they're in a jungle with guards, with guns. They can't.
I was in the radio room on Thursday night. The phone rang and it was Jones. And he said, "So what do you think?" And I said, "They're expecting to be turned away. I think we should let the congressman in." He said, this is a shitty way to live. And the conversation went on, and all of a sudden he just, and he went into 20 minutes of non sequitur sentences, slurring half the time. I was terrified. I mean, I thought, oh my God, the leader has lost his mind. Literally lost his mind.
So do we sign in or want to go over there and see?
Check over here with the list. Everybody.
Congressman Ryan approached our group and said, okay, we have 2 planes. We have this many seats. The concerned relatives groups started kind of fighting over the seats. And I just stepped back and I said, I'm not fighting for a seat on the airplane. I was told later, people said that if I had shown up on that airstrip on the way in, they would have killed everybody right then and there. Nobody would have ever even got into Jonestown. There was so much hatred for me.
Friday, November 17th. Congressman Ryan and his party headed for Jonestown, not certain whether they would get there or what they would find.
We may have a group of bad relatives, and we're working with Congressman Ryan to try to dictate to us and take us back as prisoners. And that means every one of you will have to say to your relatives, no, I will not be a prisoner. No, I will not go back.
We were told that Leo Ryan was coming because he was part of the CIA. We were drilled and drilled and drilled and drilled and drilled. People were rehearsed, and so it was a huge, huge, huge deal.
The government didn't favor him to come in and CIA conspiracy, but I do know it's real.
The settlers in Jonestown hear from Jones that there are going to be people coming. There are people who start to see this might be the time we leave Guyana. When a congressman comes, surely, nobody's going to screw with a congressman. You could leave with him, you might be safe.
And I remember thinking I didn't know how I was going to leave, but I made that commitment to myself and my son. I said, Jakari will not spend another birthday here. Diane Louie, a very close friend of mine, said her boyfriend, Richard Clark, had started finding a way out the moment he arrived in Jonestown. And I told her that I wanted to go.
I wanted to leave with Congressman Ryan. I immediately thought, this is my chance to get out of here. So I was walking down the path, and Monica Bagby just says, let's get the fuck out of here. And so from then on, we tried to talk to one another, to bolster one another. I'm probably the one who needed the bolstering. Yes, I mean, it sounds crazy, but yes, we have a right to leave. Yes, it's okay that we leave. I wrote the note, help us get out of Jonestown. And that was my plan, to hand him the note and ask for his assistance to leave. And it was very much like a prison escape.
You're not walking out of here. That was what Jim said. You are not leaving here walking. You'll be dead in a box. You're not leaving here.
The consequences of conspiring to leave was death. Period.
I'm Congressman Ryan. I'm from the United States government, and we're here to inquire into the health and the welfare of American citizens who are here.
If you want to see your congressman, stick around. He may come in. I don't know how long he'll stay, but I can assure you that if he stays long enough for tea, he's going to regret it.
I heard a plane overhead on November 17th. That was Friday. A twin-engine plane, and then the alarm sounded. And so I'm excited and I'm scared.
First, we went on a tour of the commune, and it was impressive. I mean, you are in the deepest, thickest jungle, and yet they had carved out a viable community.
You go like this, make a choo-choo train. Make a choo-choo train.
Virtually every person we talked to said the same thing. I love it here. I never want to go home.
You're happy here.
I'm very happy here. It's the best place I've ever been.
You want to stay?
Definitely. I certainly do.
Some people have said that they couldn't leave if they wanted to. Do you think you could?
Yeah, if I really wanted to, I'm free to go. If I was really wanted to, I'll be able to free to go.
They had entertainment that night. Jim Jones was showing the congressman, this is our people. Everything was riding that night on Congressman Ryan's acceptance of us. So the atmosphere was extremely tense.
There's a huge show being put on for the benefit of the community, but obviously for us as well.
The entertainment is going on. Ryan was invited to get up and talk to everybody.
I'm very glad to be here. This is a congressional inquiry, and I think that all of you know that I'm here to find out more about questions that have been raised about your operation here. But I can tell you right now that whatever the comments are, there are some people here who believe that this is the best thing that ever happened to them in their whole life.
And the place just exploded in applause. Not rehearsed, has been printed many, many times. It was loud. My brother told me afterwards that it was the loudest they'd ever heard Jonestown.
But it was manic. There was an artificiality to it. And it didn't just go on for 30 seconds. It went on for minutes and minutes.
What I hear is this incredible tension being broken by this way over enthusiastic clapping. It was during the performance that I thought, this is my chance to get out of here. The stakes were very high. It was like an all or nothing, do or die. This is going to work or else. Reporter Don Harris was kind of doing a circle around the crowd in the inside. So he made it possible for me to pass the note. And I put the note in the kind of the curve of his elbow. But the note fell out on the ground. And this little kid, I think it was 10 or something, he started yelling, "He passed a note, he passed a note!" And I picked it up and I said, "I think he dropped something." I handed it back to him, and he walked on. I'm exposing myself totally, and I am in pure terror.
Don Harris approaches us, and he hands Congressman Ryan a note. And the note had Vern Gosney and Monica Bagby's name on it. And it indicated they wanted to get out of there. So my heart sank. I thought, this is it. It's really true. People are being held here against their will.
We hear Vern Gosney has passed a note to somebody saying he wanted to leave. Diane comes and she says, "We're leaving tomorrow." That was the plan.
After the performance, Congressman Ryan came and spoke with me. And he said, "You are the first one to ask to leave. You'll have the first seats on the plane." And I told him, "You're in extreme danger. You need to leave now." He said, "Well, we can't." He didn't have any transportation to leave. He couldn't leave if he wanted to.
I remember lying on this top bunk and listening to a torrential downpour that night on this roof. It was staccato sound. And I don't know that I got a wink of sleep that night. I was just thinking, how are we going to get out of here safely?
We're just a news team. We don't care one way or the other. You're convinced that Jim Jones is a good man?
Definitely. I should say so. Yes. I mean, I'm 27 years old, black, free, and I make my own choices. And I definitely think Jim Jones is a beautiful, he's got more character than I've ever seen out of anyone. And I respect him very, very much.
On November 18th, it was determined that we were going to leave. My husband, Joe, and I have separated. I have Jakari. But that day, Joe shows up, and I'm holding our son. He says, "Where are you going?" I said, "We're going on a picnic." He goes, "A picnic?" And I'm thinking, this is the stupidest excuse you could ever come up with. Okay, we blew it. It's over. Then he just said, "Well, today's not a good day. Don't go." That's what he said. Now I'm panicking a little bit. We have to hustle. Richard says it's 30-something miles, and we got to walk it. And so we left. And we just started walking down the road. I have Jakari tied to a sheet on my back. And I'm so scared. I am so unbelievably scared. It's hard to breathe. I feel like my heart's in my throat. I'm trying to keep from panicking. And I'm just waiting for the bullet.
I met with Congressman Ryan and Jackie Spears. Congressman Ryan said, "You have a congressional shield of protection around you. Nothing can happen to you." And I just thought, you're insane. So then I went to say goodbye to my son. And Edith, his caretaker, was in the middle between these two guards. And then I saw my son. I remember him sitting with me and just being like a typical 4-year-old who can't sit still and just squirming and calling all around. And then he went back to Edith. It's a moment that I've went over a million times in my mind. A million times in my mind. But I didn't know what was going to happen.
So this is when Jones finally showed up at the pavilion. And I was standing off to the side when he was being interviewed by Don Harris of NBC. Harris showed him the note from Vern or Monica saying they wanted to leave.
Last night, someone came and passed me this note.
Well, that's who we're talking about. He wants to leave his son here. If Jonestown's such a bad place, why does he want to leave his son here?
Doesn't it concern you, though, that this man, for whatever reason, one of the people in your group...
People play games, friend. They lie. If it's so damn bad, why is he leaving his son here? Can you give me a good reason for that? I'd take my son with me.
But you could see that he was not right. I mean, I couldn't see how not right he was, but you could see he was not right.
The mood in that pavilion was starting to be chaos. And I realized at that moment that there was other people that wanted to leave.
My name is Jackie Spear. What is your wish today? To go back home. And where's home? U.S.
I was quite shocked because those two families came with Jim Jones from Indiana.
It's not that I don't think what you're doing here is wonderful, because I do.
Just know that there's always a place for you to do this. Always a place. Sorry. I said there's always a place for you. Yeah, I know there is. I know there always will be a place for you. I'm forgetting the person.
People that had been with Jim for decades came up and said, we want to go. And all of a sudden, the whole mood changed.
I remember there was this screaming match going on.
You bring those kids back here! Hold on a second. You bring them back! 1 second.
A couple with a child was pulling on the child. One parent had one arm pulling, she wanted to go, and the other one wanted to stay.
Don't you touch my kids! Mother! Wait, take my kids! No!
And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is... The intensity of emotion had just skyrocketed.
I had tears rolling down my face. It was so incredibly emotional. But Jones's demeanor changed. I could see the anger growing on his face. In terms of people leaving, it had gone from 7 or 8 to now 13 or 14, and now another 9. We're up over 20 people.
It was decided, as the group of people who wanted to leave grew, that Congressman Ryan would stay behind and we would have 2 airlifts. And I would take the first group out. And all of a sudden, Larry Layton jumps onto the truck.
Dale Parks came and said, Larry Layton is coming with us. You've got to watch him. He's a plant. He's not a sincere person who wants to leave. We've got to watch him. And so we all got on the truck.
We're getting ready to leave. And I remember talking to Don Harris, and we were feeling relieved, like we were getting out of this powder keg.
All of a sudden, the wind, literally out of nowhere, the wind picked up to like 35, 40 miles an hour. The sky turned black, and just this torrential downpour happened. What I felt, and I felt it physically, was evil blow into Jonestown. It's like a supernatural force swept in and took over the place. The reason this was so important is because the truck couldn't leave.
They kept running the motor and couldn't get out of the mud. But what was going through my mind is, you're not getting out of here. You're not going to leave.
And then there was this eruption from the pavilion.
Congressman Ryan is back in the pavilion. He's across from me. He's talking to me. And I noticed a man named Don Sly walking up behind Congressman Ryan. He's shaking like a leaf. And it looks like he's actually crying. And I thought to myself, somebody else is leaving, you know. Oh, well, he's leaving too. And all of a sudden, a knife comes out. And he says, all right, motherfucker, you're going to die. We all jumped on him and we got the knife away. Congressman Ryan is sitting down, and you can see blood on the congressman's shirt. He was obviously shaken up. Somebody was trying to kill him. Personally, what I felt was, oh my God, the leader is a murderer. I've been playing peace and love, and he's a fucking murderer. I felt completely naive. By this time, Jones is sitting there, and he's like this, and he starts, I've never felt Jonestown so peaceful. And I got chills all over my body, because Jonestown had never been more in pain or more agony. It felt literally to me like Jonestown was disintegrating in front of my eyes.
Out walks Congressman Ryan, and he's got blood stains on his shirt. He gets into the cab of the truck, and the truck takes off with the airstrip. I thought, oh my gosh, we are so lucky. I mean, we've just dodged a bullet. There's an attempt on Ryan's life. We've got these defectors. I'm still unsure about why Larry Layton's on this truck, but we'll sort it out when we get to the airstrip.
For myself, the feeling in that truck was terror, foreboding. I don't think there was a lot of talking going on.
It's 6 miles to Port Kaituma. The roads are narrow, the roads are muddy. It's going to take a little while to get there. They're gone maybe 10 minutes when a tractor pulls out of Jonestown after them, and there's a number of men on it, 6, 7, 8, all armed, and they disappear too.
At this point in time in the pavilion, I'm kind of afraid because I helped save the congressman's life. So I started kind of easing my way out of the pavilion. I walked back to the cottages and I felt literally like there was a target on my back. It felt like I had a sniper's scope on my back. This was so hard. I get back to the cottages and Gloria's there with Malcolm. And she's laying down on the bed. And Malcolm was playing on the floor with his toys. And I said, do you know what's happening up there? And she shook her head, yes. And we just started holding each other. And I said, I'm afraid we're all going to die.
At Port Kaituma, Ryan, because there's so many people coming, has called ahead asking that an extra plane come, that there would be 2 planes instead of 1. They're still sorting that out. When Leo Ryan is going to go ahead and give an interview to the TV crew on the tarmac.
Did he say anything when he came up?
Yeah, he said something about rob and choke and kill and or knife. I don't know. But what he said was he intended to kill me.
Congressman Ryan is talking to some members of the press. I start to board passengers onto planes. And I'm boarding the smaller plane first.
Myself and Larry Layton were assigned to the small plane.
Congressman Ryan at this point has come over and I says, you know, I don't trust Larry Layton. I don't want to be on the same plane. One of the press people is there and I says, would you just frisk him? He frisks him, doesn't find the gun.
All of a sudden, in comes the tractor from Jonestown. They're starting to think, uh-oh, there's trouble.
All of a sudden, there's this noise.
I looked out the window and said, they're killing everybody. They're killing everybody.
It does not even register to me that it's guns going off. I see Ryan running. All of a sudden, I'm hit.
I looked out the window. I said, they're killing everyone. They're killing everyone. And I turned to Larry, and he shot me twice. Point blank, one on each side, once on the leg. And then Larry shot Monica twice in the back. I think he had one bullet left, and he took it and pointed it right into Dale Park's face. And pulled the trigger, and the gun misfired. And so we had the fight for the gun.
I'm lying under the plane, pretending I'm dead. And I look down at the right side of my body, and my whole right leg is just blown up. And I realize that I'm dying.
The adrenaline was running. I felt no pain. I was in survival mode, and I overpowered Larry Layton. I went out through the pilot's door. I could still hear the gunshots, and I ran to the side of the runway until I collapsed, and I just started calling for help.
There are other people grievously wounded. Some younger people who were part of the group run into the jungle. Other people are slightly wounded, trying to hide in the grass. The gunmen make certain that Leo Ryan is dead. They could have continued hunting for the wounded, finish them off, but instead they get on the tractor and return to Jonestown.
Eventually, Guyanese locals get to the airstrip and place me on the side of the airstrip. Unfortunately, I'm placed on top of an anthill. So all of a sudden I have these ants crawling over my body. And I oftentimes say, you know, you don't sweat the small stuff when you're dying.
I don't recall how big the group of assassins were. I don't know, 4, 5, 6. They were all people I knew for many years. All the assassins, including Larry as well. I knew everyone.
There are 5 dead on the tarmac. The 5 dead include Ryan, members of the media, and one woman who had been at Jonestown and was trying to escape. Meanwhile, back at Jonestown, a voice comes on the speaker saying everyone needs to come to the pavilion. Jim Jones realized it's no longer a matter of if, but when. He's not going to be able to go back to the States. What was going to be left to him was to tell his followers that now is the time. We're committing a revolutionary act.
The congressman's dad, they've killed people. So my dad at this point, he knows he's gone. So he knows he's going out, and now he doesn't want to go alone.
As people were walking up from the cottages, it was very quiet, it was very somber. I say Jones in his conversation, and it's very animated, and it's obvious that something is going on.
He's saying that there are people coming right now to attack us. They're going to take us out. This is our final stand.
Maria Katsaris comes up, whispers something in Jones's ear.
Maria Katsaris was one of Jones's true quote-unquote lieutenants. one of the people that was closest to Jim Jones. Jim looks at her and he goes, "Is it supposed to be quick?" She goes, "Yes, it's supposed to be quick." And he said, "Does it taste okay?" She goes, "Yes, it's supposed to taste good."
Somewhere in Jonestown, human guinea pigs were testing cyanide that was mixed in a vat of Flavor Aid. Flavor Aid was a cheap Kool-Aid knockoff.
And I'm thinking, oh my God, how do I get out of here? How do I get Gloria and Malcolm out of here with me?
As people are gathering in the pavilion, Jones took the stage. And we don't have to wonder what was said that day. There was a tape running. It's known now as the death tape.
How very much I've loved you. How very much I've tried my best to give you a good life. But in spite of all of that I've tried, a handful of our people, with their lives, have made our life impossible. There's no way to detach ourselves from what's happened today. And we are sitting here waiting on a powder keg. It was said by the greatest of prophets from time immemorial, "No man takes my life from me, I lay my life down." If we can't live in peace, then let's die in peace.
On November 18th, my brothers went to go see a movie. I stayed at the compound. Early evening, I was called to the radio room by Sharon Amos. I never liked Sharon. She was a fanatic. My father was in the radio. And he said, "Jimmy, we're visiting Mr. Frazier," which was a code. Then he said, "The avenging angels have visited Leo Ryan, and we need you to avenge our actions." In code, to break that up, was, "We're going to commit revolutionary suicide. The congressman has been killed. We need you to avenge our deaths, so kill anybody in town, and kill yourself." I know when I was in Jonestown, and they were having these white night drills and long meetings about dying for the cause, I never took it serious. I never thought we were going to die for the cause. I broke out of code. "Dad, we're not going to kill ourselves. People in Jonestown can't die." But no, Jim. Meanwhile, I'm like, "Go get my brothers." So they went and got them, and Sharon Amos is like, "Oh, we got to figure out how to kill ourselves. Do we have piano wire? Do we have, thin wire?" I mean, she's kind of tweaking out.
We quickly made our way back to the headquarters in Georgetown. I knew that things were far worse than they'd ever been before, and I'm trying to manage the situation. I had told someone, "Do not let Sharon Amos out of your sight." I knew she had to be watched and that she was volatile and capable of terrible things.
We ran over to the U.S. Embassy, and we're talking to a little squawk box, and they won't let us in. We're saying, "Send us into Jonestown. We can stop it. We don't know what's going on, but you need to send us out there right now."
They're saying, surely the embassy, if nothing else, can get a helicopter. If we can get back to Jonestown before anything happens, we can stop him. And they're trying to call in, this emergency. No, we're closed. It's Saturday.
So we go back to the house. Everyone's screaming and yelling. Sharon Amos had taken her kids into the bathroom with a guy named Chuck Beitman, and took our niece inside, Stephanie. and cut the children's throats.
What I came upon is not something that I want to describe, but it was horrible.
You can still hear people gurgling. Our friend Calvin Douglas busted into the bathroom and pulled Stephanie out. She still has a scar. We called the police, and the police came. By then, the gurgling has stopped.
Back in Jonestown, Jim Jones is on the stage.
I don't know who fired the shot. I don't know who killed the congressman. But as far as I'm concerned, I killed him. You understand what I'm saying? I killed him. He had no business coming. I told him not to come.
And as soon as the word gets out, the Army's going to be parachuting in. They're going to come for us. They're going to kill us all. They're going to get our kids. We can't let that happen. We need to commit revolutionary suicide.
We can't go back. They won't leave us alone. They're now going back to tell more lies, which means more congressmen. And there's no way we can survive.
As they are in the pavilion getting ready to commit suicide, a woman by the name of Christine Miller begins to question what the logic is behind letting 14 people who defect cause the deaths of over 1,000 people.
Yes, Christine.
I said I'm afraid to die.
I don't think you are.
I don't think you are. But I look at our babies and I think they deserve to live.
I agree.
You know?
But also they deserve peace.
I'm completely schizophrenic at this time, because one part of me is saying, everybody's going to die, you're going to die, and another part of me is saying, this doesn't make any sense. You don't kill everybody.
Everybody dies. I haven't seen anybody yet that didn't die. And I like to choose my own kind of death for a change. I'm tired of being tormented to hell. That's what I'm tired of. Tired of it.
By this time, the pavilion is filled up with people. There's armed guards around the pavilion, but the energy there was just, I don't even know how to describe it. Defeated. It was kind of like people had been crushed. At this point, I'm kind of intellectual. It's like, well, how is this going to come down? How am I going to die? What's going to happen? Because I'm not going to go down without a fight. When there's a tap on my shoulder.
He's been tapped on the shoulder by Maria Ketzer. So's his brother Mike. Jim has a job for you. Come with us. And they're taken to a back cabin. And there are 3 suitcases.
She goes, we have suitcases of money that need to be delivered to the Russian embassy in Georgetown. Will you take them? She gave us each a gun. She said, if you're successful, take what you need to live on and have a good life. But under no circumstances are you to be taken alive. You're to kill yourselves if you're caught. As to why I wanted to go to the Russians, I don't know if it was Jim Jones' final FU to the United States government. I don't know. But I said yes. And in my mind, I was buying time because I couldn't catch up. I could not catch up with what was going on.
Who wants to go with their child has a right to go with their child. I think it's humane. I want to see you go, though. I don't want to see you go through this hell no more. No more, no more, no more.
As the vats of cyanide-laced flavor aid are brought out, they are instructed to give the drink to the children first. Because, of course, once the children have been poisoned, how can any adult live after having watched their own children die?
Hurry, my children, hurry. All I say does not fall into the hands of the enemy. Hurry, my children.
They have syringes, and they're going to squirt this stuff in the babies' mouths.
No more pain now. No more pain. No more pain. If you adults would stop some of this nonsense, adults, I call on you to stop this nonsense. I call on you to quit exciting your children when all they're doing is going to quiet rest. I call on you to stop this now, if you have any respect at all.
Meanwhile, the adults are about to have their turn.
Where's the vat? The vat. Where's the vat with the green seeds? Bring it here so the adults can begin.
People are lining up, and some of them refuse to do it, and they're held down and forcibly injected. And we know this because later with the bodies, some of them had abscesses on their neck, on their arms, on their skull, anywhere a needle could get jammed. That's where the needles went in. And everybody else is lined up to die.
So while Maria's getting the gold, I went to get water. You don't go into the jungle without water. As I'm approaching the back of the pavilion, it's when people started dying, and I cannot go through the rest of it today. I just can't. But needless to say, my wife and son were dying. It was just darkness. There was no light anywhere in my life. As I'm walking back to Jones's cottage, Carolyn Layton was coming up, and she said, "What's wrong, Tim? Why are you crying?" All I could say is, "They've murdered my son, they've murdered my son, they've murdered my son."
Jones says it's going to be easy. But death by cyanide is one of the worst ways to go possible. It keeps your body from absorbing oxygen. You suffocate slowly.
I tell you, I don't care how many screams you hear, I don't care how many anguished cries. Death is a million times preferable to 10 more days of this life.
The sounds I was hearing were screaming. People were screaming in fear, in pain, in death. There was nothing joyous going on. There was no grand hallelujah for Jim Jones. Marcelin Jones was screaming, "Stop this, stop this, stop this." People were being massacred.
Mother, please, 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 don't do this, don't do this.
People have painted this picture that my mother was up there doling out the poison, but that runs contrary to what I know about my mother. She came from a stand by and slightly behind your man era, but she was also very strong-willed. My father ordered her restrained, and she struggled until the last child died.
At that point in time, I just wanted the nightmare to stop. I wanted to die. And there was a voice in my head that said, "You cannot die, you cannot die, you must go on, you cannot die." We went back to the cottages, got the suitcases, and left Jonestown. At this point in time, I didn't even know if I wanted to live. But I knew I wanted nothing to do with Jim Jones. I wanted nothing to do with Russians. I wanted nothing to do with money. So I said, "We can't do this. We need to dump the suitcases." And there's a part of me that doesn't even believe that I just saw what I saw.
1,000 people who say we don't like the way the world is. Take our life from us. We laid it down. We got tired. We didn't commit suicide. We committed an act of revolutionary suicide protesting the conditions of an inhumane world.
There's been a monsoon the day before. Steam is rising up off the ground. It's like fog. And finally, The fog, the mist is clearing a little bit. And what they see, they find almost impossible to describe over the radio to the superiors waiting back in Georgetown. They start describing there's just heaps of them. And of course in Georgetown, heaps of what? Dead people.
As soon as these pictures from Jonestown cleared our newsroom, everybody, even a lot of hardened news people, reacted in horror and disbelief. The word on everybody's lips was shades of Auschwitz. As you can see, bodies are strewn all over the place. The bodies seemed awful and orderly, not flung about like corpses after a battle, but neat. Hand in hand sometimes, arms about each other's shoulders.
The death ritual was methodical. Some of the syringes contained poison, the rest had tranquilizers.
Marcia, you have more.
Yeah, of course, there's a lot we don't know, but this we do know. The Reverend Jim Jones, was the founder of People's Temple, is dead, and he died as a result of a gunshot wound to the head, not of poisoning.
Jim Jones, they find on the pavilion, bloated, dead, gunshot wound to the head. You can suspect that Jim Jones, having seen the terrible deaths his followers were suffering, at the last minute didn't want it for himself.
Police believe that most of the people went willingly, but others were forced by armed guards.
When the poison was being passed out, men were around this auditorium area here with crossbows. They were acting as guards. Clayton, 28 of Oakland, is one of 4 known eyewitnesses to the suicide murders. He got away after more than 700 had died by slipping past a guard.
A lot of people didn't want to die. They were just sitting there, frightened, afraid. And in one case, she struggled pretty hard because she didn't want to die.
And how did they kill her?
They injected her in the arm.
The soldiers, they're asked, can you count them? And they try.
400 suicides and killings. One of the most astonishing stories of our time, perhaps of any time.
Well, there's at least 900-something people in Jonestown. That must mean there's 500 people who are still alive. Maybe they've run into the jungle.
The morning that we left, my plan was to escape, come back and get my sister and brother and my niece and nephew. So once we realized that the tragedy happened, I'm just praying that one of my family members ran to the jungle, if not all of them. But the body count was wrong from the beginning.
Good evening. The searching American soldiers have finished counting the bodies in Jonestown, Guyana. 910 died in the poison ritual of the People's Temple last week.
Why in the world would so many people agree to kill themselves? What kind of a leader could order mass suicide and be obeyed?
The mass suicides happened in this heavily forested area, down there in the compound.
The narrative is mass suicide, sheep drinking the Kool-Aid, voluntarily drinking the Kool-Aid. And yet, a lot of people were murdered. And if you just seen your child murdered, besides wanting to kill the motherfucker that did it, would you want to live? The answer is probably no. If you believe that the only choice you have is dying by drinking a poison or getting shot, are you committing suicide? Or are you taking the easiest way out because you know that you're going to die anyway? The bottom line is what happened in Jonestown, Guyana was murder.
I lost my entire immediate family in Jonestown. I lost my mother Inez, who was 50. I lost my brother Mark, who was 16. I lost my sister Michelle, who was 24. I lost Joe, who was 24. Yeah, I lost them all. in one moment.
They didn't want me to keep my hopes up for John Victor. But finally, one of the survivors said that they had personally seen John and that he had evidently been taken. He was in Jim's cabin and then he had been injected and they actually saw. So I knew for sure that he was deceased, so.
I was shot once in each side, my diaphragm, my stomach, my liver, my pancreas was removed. When I came out of ICU, I found out what had happened in Jonestown because I did not know. The psychiatrist just came into my room and opened the paper like this to show me the pictures of the dead bodies. I think at the moment when I knew that my son was dead and being asked to describe his clothing, I think my mind just snapped. I just think I just had a mental breakdown. I didn't function really well for a very long time.
How are you going to handle this nightmare?
I don't know. It's a nightmare.
For the survivors, things were only going to get worse.
The cultists try to forget, but all know they can never escape the stigma of what happened at Jonestown.
My name's Tim Carter, but I really don't want to talk right now.
Tim, please, this is very important. I lost 2 friends here, too.
I lost my wife and my son. I don't want to talk right now.
We get to the airport, and all of a sudden there's just reporters everywhere. So that was the beginning of 36 hours straight of media interviews.
But you claim you had no role in the actual deaths of other people.
No, because we didn't see it.
We got to go.
Stay back.
But the very first reporter said, this is going on the evening national news, saying that you guys are hitmen. You can respond if you want or not.
You were an elite. You had a better life inside Jonestown, and that you could have saved people.
Wait a second.
There was no place for us to go or hide.
Stay with him.
Hey, this is all private, okay, guys?
Stay back.
After everyone died, the media was everywhere.
It wasn't mass suicide, you know. It was mass murder.
I wanted to stop it. All those people in my life, all of my 19 years, I've known no one else, right? What am I going to do? You see what's happened when a few people tried to leave. I didn't know what could happen. I'm doing the best I can.
There were many people within the community that I loved. We had just lost everything. We were devastated. I know I felt complicit. I felt terrified, horrified, grief-stricken, hopeless, and ashamed.
I can almost say that I hate this man for doing what he's done because he has destroyed everything I've lived for.
Moments after the latest 17 survivors arrived at Kennedy Airport last night, FBI agents escorted them onto buses for the most intense questioning yet of returning survivors. Included in the group, the Reverend Jim Jones' adopted son, Jim.
To me, he was sick. I'm not no medical person, but if I was to look at him, I would look at him and say, that's a sick man.
We arrived penniless and hungry and, traumatized by our whole experience. And then they kept up the questioning.
They were suspected of being part of the plot. People all think they're nuts, They might be murderers. They're all scarred in that way.
We were followed. I would go to work, I'd have a plainclothes car following me. I think some of that was like, what the hell's going on with them? What are they going to do?
After I escaped Jonestown, I was still in Jonestown in my mind. There was a lot of paranoia. If I saw a man from the back with black hair, I thought it was Jim Jones, and I would start running. One of the hardest things to deal with, among many, were Kool-Aid jokes, Jonestown jokes. I was treated by people that thought I was very stupid.
We all felt like we had been made fools of in a way because we had believed so totally in what Jim Jones was saying.
Jim Jones was a cult leader who was maniacal and who was allowed to pursue this horrific cause for his personal aggrandizement. He had used the word church in sanitizing his grotesque behavior.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Jim went into the deep, dark recesses of his mind, and what came back out was scary. It was terrible.
Jones put himself in a position where no one could tell him no. He was enabled. This is what demagogues do. And so gradually, the worst part of his nature took over until finally it consumed him, and sadly it consumed all the people who believed in him.
I felt it was my responsibility to attend as many funerals as possible, especially for my friends of mine. One of my friends, I went to a funeral, and I remember the mother coming out of the hallway with a .38 caliber pistol and pointing it at me and saying, "Why are you alive when my daughter's not?" And then everyone grabbing her, and me kind of sitting there going, pull the trigger. You know, it was at that point, I didn't want to live.
Little has changed in the settlement itself. There are police guards patrolling to keep visitors away. The chair in which Jim Jones sat when he called on his people to die is still there, along with the benches where they sat and listened and obeyed.
My name is Larry White.
Most of the temple survivors and defectors who returned from Guyana have settled in San Francisco. The People's Temple building was sold. It is now a Korean Presbyterian church. Doctors say that almost all the former temple members live with anxiety, fear, and guilt.
I think that they will be able to build a life for themselves. The fears, the memories, and some of the scars, for many of them, it'll be a lifelong process trying to deal with that.
For many years, I wasn't healing. I was battling demons on a daily basis, using everything I could to quiet the noise inside me. And around that time, my daughter was born. That little baby cracked my heart open in a way that pushed me toward life instead of choosing the easy way out.
I went by James for a long time. And it wasn't until many years after that I even went by Jim Jones again. After 40 years, I've lived 2 lifetimes outside People's Temple. I'm grateful that I survived.
I was hospitalized for 2 months. I had a lot of time to think. I was so badly wounded that they thought they were going to have to amputate my arm and or my leg. I had gas gangrene through my body. I just made a commitment to myself that I did not want to spend the rest of my life as a victim or survivor of Guyana. And I made a commitment then to spend the rest of my life in public service, to continue Congressman Ryan's legacy.
When I came back to the United States, I was shattered. Came back with survivor's guilt and I wasn't diagnosed. I was like, why did I survive? Why was I allowed to survive? Inside, I was so broken. I didn't start healing until 20 years later. My son, Jakari, calls me his, warrior queen. He understands the sacrifice that I made. He knows every step of the way I'm there. I'm just not going anywhere. And I know a lot of it is because of Jonestown.
I call Leslie Wagner my hero because she left with her son. I see her as a person of great courage, that she was able to do that. She was able to get her son out, and she was able to risk death. I've come to peace with my journey, except around my son. That will be something that's always with me. I still struggle to forgive myself.
The former temple members try to comfort each other. Their temple past is their bond. Whatever their thoughts about Jim Jones, they are all trying to rebuild shattered lives.
All of us, if we allow ourselves to step into that story, there's something there we can use. And I pray that anyone watching this can take away from it whatever is valuable to them as a way of honoring those we lost.
There are many lessons to be learned from Jonestown. I look at the world today. I look at the environment that we're in, and I see this parallel. And I look at how People's Temple began. It began in a time where there was a socio-political change, but it was also based on fear. We are in the same type of environment, if not worse, that could generate something much, much more dangerous than Jonestown. It could happen again.
I put the blame of what happened in Jonestown on my father. But I don't think the story is Jim Jones. I think the story is the people who followed Jim Jones to Jonestown.
I always said, how appropriately named was People's Temple? Because it was really the people that made that church.
Some of the best years of my life were in People's Temple. It wasn't People's Temple. It was a sense of community, sense of belonging, sense of doing the right thing when no one was looking.
It's just really too bad that we couldn't have gone down in history as this great, wonderful humanitarian group that we were. We could have been a force to be reckoned with.
I wish that there was an easy answer around People's Temple in Jonestown, but there are no easy answers. And anybody that has taken the time to get to know the story has discovered that, oh my gosh, these were like real folks, And nothing special about us, nothing unspecial about us. Maybe even like me. And and I might have actually joined something like that.